Kevin Spacey is here. He has won the Oscar for his performances in The Usual Suspects and American Beauty. He's also a man of the theater. He has starred in plays like The Iceman Cometh and is currently the artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre in London. Here is a look at some of his memorable film work.
Okay, everybody, on the table. Money, jewelry, anything you got that I want. You hold anything back and I'll kill the lady just like this.
The people are insane. They just like talking to salesmen.
Don't.
I'm sorry. Why? Because I don't like you.
That guy is tense. Tension is a killer. I used to be in a barbershop quartet in Skokie, Illinois. The baritone was this guy named Kip Diskin. Big fat guy, I mean like orca fat. He was so stressed in the morning, you know.
Verbal, you know we're trying to help you.
Sure, and I appreciate that. And I want to help you, Agent Kuyan. I like cops.
Don't ask me to pity those people. I don't mourn them any more than I do the thousands that died at Sodom and Gomorrah.
Is that to say, John, that what you were doing was God's good work?
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask you a question? Who is Tamlin? Does he exist? Because he doesn't ever seem to come in. Yeah. Okay. I'll leave my number. It's 555-0199. Lester Burnham. Thank you.
When that shark bites with his teeth, baby, scarlet billows start to spread. Fancy gloves, though, wears old Maggie Heath, baby. So there's never a trace of red. I'll let that thing swing.
Some people say Jack Abramoff moves too fast. Jack Abramoff cuts corners. Well, I say to them, if that's the difference between me and my family having a good life and walking and using the subway every day, then so be it. I will not allow my family to be slaves. I will not allow the world I touch to be vanilla.
That's your life there, sir.
It's like a tribute show. What are you doing?
No, it's not. It is not a tribute. It is, we just wanted you to see.
Wow.
Either you are very old or you have been making a lot of movies.
Well, the first clip you showed, which I haven't seen forever, that was my very first film. Mike Nichols put me in this little part in Heartburn. It was amazing. Meryl Streep's there. Maureen Stapleton is in that scene.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
This was about Nora Ephron.
That's right, Nora Ephron.
And her relationship with...
Carl Bernstein.
Carl Bernstein, yes.
Yes, and it went awry. Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep played
How many
parts.
movies have you made?
I don't know.
You don't?
No, I don't know.
And do any of those bring back memories?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, looking at Jack Lemmon and just...
Oh, yeah.
He's so much a part of my life, even today.
Really?
You know...
Why so?
Because I started the foundation. I started my own foundation last year because as I'm looking down the road of knowing that I'm going to leave the Old Vic in 2015, all the work that I've been doing there in education, working with emerging artists, we have a really great program called Old Vic New Voices, which has been about encouraging and giving a place for young actors, writers, directors, and producers to learn their craft. And we've had a remarkable sort of success record of people that we've nurtured who have now gone on. And you know, Josie O'Rourke is going to run the Dunmar, and she was one of our young directors that we supported. And so there's a lot of people that I want to continue that work, but once I lose the venue of the Old Vic, I'm not going to have a place to do it, and I don't want to run another theater. So the foundation will be the vehicle which I can continue to do that kind of stuff. And a large reason why I'm doing it is because when I grew up and I was starting out, you know, when I was in high school, I met Jack Lemmon when I was 13 years old and at a workshop, very much like the kinds of workshops that I'm doing now with Richard III all over the world. And it's partly because Jack had this kind of great philosophy, which was that if you've done well in the business you wanted to do well in, then it's your obligation to spend a good portion of your time sending the elevator back down.
And that's what you're doing.
And that's what I'm doing. So Jack's always there.
All right, let me talk a little bit about what you're doing now. Take a look at this. This is from Richard III.
Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York. Curse not thyself, fair creature.
How would I were to be revenged on thee?
It is a quarrel most unnatural to be revenged on him that loveth thee.
It is a quarrel just and reasonable to be revenged on him that killed my husband.
What canst thou swear by now?
The time to come.
That thou hast wronged in the time or past.
Cousin of Buckingham, lend me thy hand.
Tomorrow in the battle think on me, and fall thy edgeless sword, despair, and die.
1,000 hearts are great within my bosom. Advance our standards, set upon our foes. March on, join bravely. Let us to it pell-mell. If not to heaven, then hand in hand to hell!
That is Kevin Spacey and Richard III. It is a touring production directed by Sam Mendes. It debuted at the Old Vic and ends its run here in New York City at BAM. Michael Billington of The Guardian, the great newspaper, has written this: when the history of Spacey's Old Vic regime is written, I suspect it will be his Richard left dangling upside down like the slaughtered Mussolini that will be most vividly remembered. Is he right about Richard III? And when you look back at the Old Vic, is that going to be sort of what?
I don't know. From my perspective, what I know is that if I hadn't had the experience of going to the Old Vic, if I hadn't had the opportunity to work with the directors that I've worked with since I started, if I hadn't been there now for 9 years and done the work I've done, I wouldn't have been ready to do Richard. I mean, Richard is, as you may well know, the second longest role in Shakespeare's canon after Hamlet. And I think partly what it does is it actually exposes a young playwright in Shakespeare. He was 28 years old when he wrote it. And he had not yet learned the lesson he later learned and applied to his later plays, which is to give the leading actor breaks. Yeah. And so out of 26 scenes, Richard's in 23 of them. And so when we started, when Sam and I began the experience back in May in London, it wasn't until really that first week that we started previews that I started to get a sense of what the ask was, what it was actually asking. Because until you start to put a play together, it's just sort of moving parts. You know, you're working on individual scenes, and then you put it all together. And I know that that first week there are several members of the company that thought I was actually going to have a heart attack backstage, because the only thing I can liken it to is that it's probably what it feels like to ride a tornado. It is a monstrous, epic, huge piece of work. And yet, it has done the opposite of what I thought it was going to do. I thought it was going to kill me. But it's actually energized me. It's been the most extraordinary. I mean, look, I've been here a lot. I've sat at this table and talked about a lot of experiences I've had. Nothing that I have ever done in the theater has compared to what this experience has been like, both in terms of the challenge of it, how terrified I was to do it when we started, the joy of doing it, and I suppose for me the most important aspect is this is exactly what I think a company of actors should be. I love this group of actors. They are absolutely dedicated to it. And we've now done over 150 performances around the world. I've just come back from 11 cities, if you include London, around the world that we've been touring in the last 4.5 months. And it's just been extraordinary. This 16th century play that's being greeted like it's a rock star.
What has the Old Vic done for you? Then I want to know what you've done for the Old Vic.
Well, the Old Vic, came along at sort of the perfect moment. You know, I had, you showed some film clips, and American Beauty being one of them. It was sort of the end of American Beauty that I just thought, the movie had come out, and I'd focused on trying to have a film career for, about 10, 12 years, and it had gone really well, and I was like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do what I see a lot of people do, which is they just keep on that train and keep making movies and keep trying to be hot and be on those lists? And I was like, no. I mean, A, I've done it, and B, it went really well, and am I going to spend the next 10 years of my life trying to top myself? And I thought, no, I thought actually I want something different. I want something that is a new challenge and a different kind of thing. And I'd never run a theater before. I certainly have admired those who have, whether it's Olivier or Joe Papp, who I fortunately was a mentor of mine. And I think there was something about going, after sort of spending 10 years of having that kind of, you know, like blinders on, you know, I'm going to have a career, you know, that kind of ambition that you have when you're young. I no longer had that kind of ambition. My priorities shifted, and to be able to focus as I have for these past, you know, 9 years on a company ethos, on something that was not about me, but was bigger than me, and trying to build a theater company that I hope will last long after I'm gone, has been the most satisfying and the smartest choice I could have possibly made at that moment in my life. I know it was the right choice.
Yeah. Where will you leave this in 3 years?
Well, what I hope to be able to do in 3 years' time is to build enough of an endowment so that the person who's going to follow me as artistic director won't have to spend as much time as I've had doing the song and dance to raise money, because we get no public subsidy whatsoever at the Old Vic. So all of the work we've done, all of the educational work, all the stuff in the community,
we've had to raise the money.
We've had to raise the money. Yeah. And I don't want to saddle someone with that kind of responsibility. It's exhausting. It's difficult, and particularly in difficult economic times. You know, one of the reasons I'm so delighted and amazed that we've been able to do Richard III and the Bridge Project for these past 3 years is because Bank of America Merrill Lynch stepped up and said, we believe in what you're doing, and they've supported us. So not all bankers are horrible. What I want to be able to do is to make sure that the things that we put in place that are not about artistic taste, but are about the work we do with young people, the work with emerging artists, the work that we do in the community, that stuff I'd like to have stay. I don't want to see that whittled away because it doesn't make money. But it will be time, as I think a theater always comes to a place where it needs new artistic blood. I'm very excited about the idea that someone else will be able to come in and choose the plays and choose the directors.
When you decided to do Richard III, and that it was right for you, the time was right for you and for the theater to do it, there was Laurence Olivier.
Yeah.
There was Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
There was Al Pacino.
Anthony Sher.
Anthony Sher, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you go look and say, I got to do something different, I got to build on this? You say, I don't even want to see that because I want it to come right out of my brain.
Yeah, it's very funny because I was really nervous about it because it's just, you know, A, it has a huge history of incredible actors playing it. B, Olivier did it on the Old Vic stage. So, you know, I'm literally stepping into his shoes in a way. No, what I didn't do was watch any of them. I remembered them, and then I talked to Sam, particularly about the physical manifestation of the role. What do you do physically that is different than what anyone else has done?
Physically?
Yeah, physically, because he's a deformed king. And there are actors that, like Ian McKellen didn't do that much. I think he had a withered hand, so it was all about the dexterity of what he could do with one hand. Anthony Sher was like an extraordinary endurance test because he was in these sort of things where he was like this. Now, I have a brace and a cane and a hump and I twist my body in ways that require a good deal of treatment afterward. But I actually ended up going on YouTube and I was looking at an interview with Olivier. And I'm watching it, and I was, you know, just innocently watching it. And then he suddenly starts to talk about that during the production of Richard III, he went through a tremendous bout of stage fright. And he literally mentioned that word, and I went, stop, I don't want to see that.
No.
Am I crazy?
Why am I here? And did you watch it, though? Did you go back and see why he had stage fright?
No, I didn't, and I don't care, because you know, every actor, I think, to some degree, has this fear. We all go through it when you forget a line on stage, you know, this moment of, oh, my gosh.
So what do you do at a moment like, oh, my gosh?
Look, the company of Richard III could tell you story after story after story about the fact that I make up words. Now, look, I see nothing wrong with it. No, Shakespeare made up a lot of words as well. But I tend to, I don't apologize for screwing up. I just somehow forge through. And oddly, I end up making it in the iambic pentameter. I'll give you an example. I have a line in the play where I say, "And to this end, we wished your lordship here to avoid the censures of the carping world." And at Epidaurus, in front of 14,000 people, I said, "And to this end, we wish your lordship here to avoid the children of the starving world." And my two fellow actors went, "What? Did you just say?" I have no idea.
And they picked it right up.
Yeah. But, I mean, the point is that I've often believed that if you just forge through, if you don't apologize,
right.
if you don't go, "Oh, something went wrong," the audience doesn't know, and they think it's part of the play. Unless you fall into the orchestra pit and stop the show, I think they think it's part of the play. So I just keep going.
Has it been the most satisfying, as you said, the Shakespearean, for you, the most satisfying thing? And if that's true, why? What is it about Richard III that makes it, for you?
Well, there's two things. One is that because of the device of the direct address to the audience, you have a relationship with an audience that you don't normally have in a play where you don't break the fourth wall. Even if you're looking out, you know, you don't look at people. But in this, part of what Richard does, and Shakespeare's brilliance, is he's making the audience his co-conspirators. Yeah. He's saying, "Come, look at what I'm going to do." Like, "Can you believe I got away with that? If you thought that was good, wait for this." So there's a great kind of relationship between the audience and the actor playing Richard, and they love it up until a point when they start to realize that they've been encouraging this guy to murder people left, right, and center. So there's that. It's a very unique feeling. And secondly, I have to say, because what we tried to do, Sam and I, with the text of the play, you know, this is connected to a whole bunch of other plays, The War of the Roses. And if you don't know those other plays, there is a lot of stuff in Richard III in the folio, and certainly in the more modern versions of the play, in which characters just go on and on and on about events that happen in other plays with characters that never appear in this. So we did a lot of shaping, a lot of cutting of characters, cutting of dialogue, giving better dialogue to different characters, improving the three women roles, Gemma Jones, Hayden Gwynn, and Annabelle Sciorri are all wonderful in their roles, improving those roles, shifting the character of Richmond, who, as in the end, in the battle, he's the one that kills Richard. Right. In the end, long speeches, and Nathan Darrow plays this role. Long speeches, you know, sort of like 2 pages of stuff from Richard and then him. We did it more like film, where it's like back and forth. So we did a lot of things to try to make Richard III a standalone play, knowing that we were going to all these cities around the world. That we've been to Hong Kong, Beijing, Istanbul,
and do audiences respond differently? To different moments, to different...
you know, to some degree, you know, you can tell, you know, certain colloquial things that maybe a British audience might laugh at that an audience in Naples doesn't necessarily get. But I have to say this, it has been quite remarkable that in every city we've gone to, we have felt, whether it's Doha in Qatar, or Singapore, or Sydney, Australia, or, you know, Naples, or San Francisco, we have felt an audience absolutely enraptured for 3 hours in a play, because we're doing it in a modern context, but not we're on cell phones and computers modern, but modern in the sense that we use video images. And look, we couldn't have known or imagined that as we were in rehearsal, the Arab Spring was starting.
Exactly.
And characters just like Richard all around the globe are falling, or people are rising up against. I only really sort of felt, wow, it's so contemporary, when I was watching a BBC news program, and I think the King of Jordan had just said that Assad should step down and they should have democratic elections, and they came back to the BBC commentators, and the man said, "Yes, but don't you feel that this Arab Spring is quickly turning into a winter of discontent?" I thought, well, it actually isn't that big of a leap from the winter of discontent to the Arab Spring. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why the play is resonating with audiences everywhere. That they are seeing images and ideas and things in this play that they go home at night and watch on CNN, or of course on CBS Morning News.
Yes, of course. Starting January 9th.
Starting January 9th. Thank you for that plug.
Thank you very much. So what did Mendes bring to this?
Well, Sam...
Or not.
No, he brought a lot. I mean, Sam... First of all, one has to congratulate him on being able to bring 20 actors together who can become a company. Because, you know, you're dealing with actors at different ages and different times in their life and different experiences and different theories and different training. And yet, he's got this brilliant way of bringing everyone together. So by the time he goes off and shoots James Bond, and we're together, we are working together as a unit, as what a true company should be. We trust each other. I love this company so much.
Here is Laurence Olivier.
Oh, my goodness.
Ian McKellen.
Oh, now
and Al Pacino.
Oh, geez. What are you, like, is this a torture show?
Yes, indeed. We're trying to get the truth. The pursuit of truth is our middle name. Here they are performing an opening monologue from Richard III.
But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass, I that am rudely stamped, and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature,
deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up. And that's so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I halt lively. In this weak piping time of peace, and no delight to pass away the time. Unless to spy my shadow in the sun, in descant on mine own deformity.
Therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain and to hate the idle pleasures of these days.
I love stories. First, tell me about Olivier, the story you
Olivier, there's a great story about Olivier, apparently. You know, he didn't do, if you see as he walked away, he didn't do much in terms of... So someone came backstage when he was doing the play at the Old Vic, and he said, "Did you notice?" And they said, "What?" He said, "I stopped limping in the second scene. I don't think anyone noticed." He did very little. And Al...
is that the way he talked?
Yes, all the time. Al came...
You have always been a great mimic.
So Al came to see our Richard in London, and it was great. That he took the time to come, as he was showing a film in Venice, and then he came to see the play, and it was great. I mean, he was like, you know, "Oh, you've graduated from Buckingham to Richard. Oh, you're the big man." No, he was incredibly generous, and it was great to see him. But it's sort of amazing to see all of those in a row. And I saw McKellen, of course. I saw the movie, but I also saw him do it on stage, which he was brilliant at. It's one of those, you know, doing it, I understand now why it's been one of those parts that actors have loved to play. There's something about the way he goes about doing things, the sort of audacity with which he does stuff. And also, for me, there's been a real exploration of trying to take a character who's absolutely convinced that he has no conscience, and by the end of the play he wakes up to one after the nightmare and can't deal with it and tries to dismiss it, and then he dies.
For a moment of levity, I'm going to take you to you, because I mentioned your mimic abilities.
What are you going to
Here are you on this program.
So I'll be interviewing Bill Clinton.
All right, you go right ahead.
Mr. President, can you imagine being the first spouse in the White House? If your wife, Mr. President.
Charlie, not only can I imagine it, but I dream about it every night.
Why do you think your wife?
Oh, we're going on. You like this, dude?
Yes, I do. I can play this game.
Okay.
Why do you think your wife would make a good president? You know what it means to be president. You were there for 8 years. What does she have?
Well, she has what she's always had. She's smarter than me. All my best ideas came from Hillary.
Yeah. You know, The actor, American actor Kevin Spacey.
Oh, he does a good impression of me. It's good.
There, you remember? I don't even know where that was. I assume it's 92nd Street Y. I don't know.
Maybe it's the 92nd Street
Yeah,
Y.
I think
we
that's
did
where
that.
it was.
Yeah,
we did that.
But I don't remember what we were doing it for.
No, I.
And you saw the president recently.
Yes,
I did
indeed.
a video for him for his 10th anniversary of the foundation.
Yeah.
And
Clinton Initiative has done great things. It really
incredible
has,
stuff.
You know.
Incredible
and he's in good spirit. He's very thin now. As you
I know.
He's
Well, you know, he's a
got this-
vegan now.
I know.
He's vegan. Who would have ever thought it?
A man who loved life is now denying.
And McDonald's.
But likes it. He likes
Oh, no, he does. He's
figured
loving
it out.
He's dropped weight. And by the way, I have to tell, I have been on the Richard III diet.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, it's literally, I've dropped 20 pounds doing this play because it is like an insane workout every night.
I ask a series of people this because we do a series of conversations here called Why Shakespeare? You know, just because I'm asking a locker room question. What is it about Shakespeare for you that makes you want to go back and back and back and back?
Well, first of all, his extraordinary ability to understand human beings and everything that we experience, love and hate and jealousy and the need for power and the beauty and the poetry of the way in which he saw things. And always because his characters are in the middle of the problem. You know, they're in the middle of trying to solve something. So many of Shakespeare's characters are so actively trying to deal with this thing we call life. And because there, you know, to some degree, it does often feel like it's a different language, but it almost doesn't matter. I mean, that's what I've experienced in going to all these cities around the world, whether we have subtitles or not. Which, by the way, don't look at the subtitles when you're on stage, because in Spain, they were right there. And someone says, "Yes, my lord," and you see, "Si, senor," and it's just not the right thing in the middle of a Shakespeare play. He just, I mean, look, you know, these are 16th century plays, and yet they can feel like they were written today. They can feel like they are about today. And that, of course, is the test of any artist, is the test of time. And he's going to be around for a very long time.
So are you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I make this small note here.
Yes.
We talk about it since I get back to plugging for you.
Yes.
Richard III begins previews at the Brooklyn Academy of Music on January 10. That's next week. Opens on January 18th. That's the following week, 2012. It is part, as we have talked, of the Bridge Project and is co-produced by Bam, the Old Vic, and Neil Street. My thanks to you and Sam Mendes.
Thank you.